Chapter 8 The World That Never Was. After opening the 7th door, Riku arrived in a place he knew, a world of white and gray. Isn't this the headquarters of Organization 13? What am I doing here? How do I get back home? Your abyss awaits. Riku reflected on what the silver-haired young man had said. What did he mean by abyss? Well, only one way to find out. Let's keep moving. Komoribat was overhead, and Meow Wow was at his feet. At least he wasn't truly alone. The fact gave Riku courage. Let's go. With a call to the spirits, Riku broke into a run, and as he suspected, this world was rotten with nightmares too. They were stronger than any of the ones he'd met before, and they just kept attacking. He wasn't about to lose though. Sora was probably fighting right about now too. Riku did away with the Dream Eaters as he raced down a seemingly endless corridor with the Nobody emblem here and there along the walls. No doubt about it, this was definitely the home base of Organization 13. Seriously, what is going on? If opening the 7 keyholes brought me here, does that mean this is a sleeping world too? No, that doesn't sound right. Meaning, someone led me here? If indeed he had been led here, then in all likelihood this was some kind of trap. Was this a dream, or was this reality? Riku didn't even know that much. Either way, his only option was to keep going forward. Riku arrived at what he guessed was the outer wall of a castle, and in the distance he could see a circular plaza surrounded by giant columns. The floor was marked with the Nobody emblems as well. And as he made his way over to it, Riku spotted someone there in the center. Sora! He cried. It was his friend floating over the white surface and caught in the grip of an inky darkness. Riku ran to Sora and looked up at him. Sora was completely motionless, and his eyes were closed in a deep sleep. Sora, don't! You've got to wake up! Sora! Riku reached up and tugged his friend's hand, but Sora still didn't awaken. The dark haze around Sora began to flow out, swirling around Riku and gathering in a single location. And then, the darkness became a person in a black coat. But this coat wasn't a sheer black. There were purple emblems on the sleeves and hem. Glowing red eyes peered out from within the hood. Are you what's trapping him in that nightmare? Standing with Sora behind him, Riku raised his keyblade toward the anti-black coat. 'Cause if you are, I'm what nightmares fear. He yelled as he lunged forward and closed the gap between them. However, anti-black coat slid backward and vanished. What? Riku didn't even have a moment to think before the nightmare's black claws caught him from behind and sent him flying through the air. Ugh! Riku barely managed to recover and land on his feet instead of his face, but in the next instant, anti-black-coat melted into the darkness again and reappeared some distance away. Fighting this guy up close was going to be too much trouble. Riku caught his breath, then prepared a spell. Calculating the space between them, he suddenly cast Dark Firaga. Anti-Blackcoat was stunned by the spell, and without giving his foe a moment to recover, Riku closed in and sent it sprawling. Is it over? It wasn't. Anti-Blackcoat floated through the air and regained its balance, then watched Riku from overhead. His opponent was completely silent. Even when Riku's hits landed, it was creepy. All at once, the Dream Eater fired off several bolts of darkness. Riku swiftly batted them away and pounced once more. Meow Wow jumped forward, and Riku sprang off its back to jump even higher and unleash another blast of Dark Firaga from the air. This time, Anti-Blackcoat went still, and not long after, it turned to darkness and faded away so completely that its very existence was like a dream. But Riku didn't stick around to watch the nightmare's demise and hurried straight back to Sora. His friend was still asleep inside what looked like a sphere of light. Sora, don't chase the dreams, Riku said to him. They'll lead you nowhere, just to an abyss you'll never be able to wake up from. The radiant orb enclosing Sora rippled. No, Sora himself was distorting. Within the warping image, Riku could see something that looked like the entrance to the world that never was, the place where he had taken Ansem's form to fight Roxas. What? What's going on in Sora's world? As if on cue, the world around Riku began to waver as well, and yet Sora still wouldn't wake up. Why won't he open his eyes? Is he still in the nightmare? Riku shouted angrily before hearing a voice. That is right. He knew that voice. Ansem! He yelled. but there was no sign of its owner. The world rippled again, but it was beginning to return to normal.
Sora can no longer wake up. No matter how many nightmares you consume, you cannot wake up someone who has fallen into the chasm of dreams.
What? Now a black fog was stealing across the world around him.
Dreams hold our memories, sleep holds our dreams, and darkness, it holds our sleep. Sora's heart belongs to the darkness now.
Though Riku could hear his voice clearly, he couldn't find the source. Maybe I'm hearing Ansem from within. The thought frightened him. Still, be that as it may, he had to bring Sora back from the nightmare. He had to bring Sora back from his nightmare. Sora would never give in to the darkness. Riku shouted back at Ansem, wherever he was. The darkness could never take him, not the Sora he knew.
But you feel it, don't you? This world, the nightmare, the abyss. Why haven't you returned to the reality whence you came?
No, this is a... Was he saying that this was still a nightmare, not the real world? But the doors of sleep had been opened. How was this place still around? Where was he?
A dream of a dream, a twofold nightmare. This whole journey you have been inside Sora's dreams, and now darkness within darkness awaits you.
A pool of darkness immediately spread beneath Riku's feet. What? There was nowhere to run as the dark mire clung to his legs and pulled him down. No, I can't get loose. Though he desperately struggled to pull his legs free, it was no use. Ugh! And Riku disappeared beneath the surface. His eyes closed, Riku floated within the pitch-black space. There was no light or sound here, and before Riku hovered the very Ansem he had been confronting.
At the start of your test, when you struck out from that tiny island, you saw me there dressed in a robe.
Ansem explained, his voice measured and unhurried.
Immediately, you knew something was wrong, so without even knowing it, you dove into Sora's dream. And you became exactly what that sigil on your back represents, a Dream Eater to protect Sora from nightmares.
Me? I'm a Dream Eater? Riku opened his eyes and asked. He hadn't exactly been looking at his back over the course of this exam. The sigil was there the whole time? Really?
Correct. But you failed to protect him. After all your efforts to command the darkness and protect those you cherish, it is a shame you locked that power away in the end.
Riku had no regrets about shutting away what he'd gained by drawing upon Ansem's power, the power of darkness. I wanted to protect the people I cared about, but I let the darkness in to do it. That power was my weakness. I don't need it now. Except, it's not over. I can still save Sora.
So you understand what to do. Set the darkness in you free, and you can rescue your friend.
I've traveled through the worlds more than once, and I've learned plenty along the way. Light and darkness aren't separate. They're two sides of the same coin. Those negative emotions like fear, sadness, doubt, they're part of the darkness in my heart. What's made me stronger was keeping that sadness contained, locking it away. No, by embracing it and carrying it with me. Ansem, Riku said to him, or Xehanort. You used to be a Keyblade wielder, but darkness stole your heart and the Keyblade with it. Don't you see? That's half the reason I'm even on this journey. After allowing darkness into my heart, am I still fit to wield the Keyblade? Even after locking you away, here you are, haunting me again. So I get it now. There's no point in trying to hold the darkness back.
At last, you see clearly.
The deeper the darkness, the brighter the light shining within it, and the greater the sorrows I've endured. The stronger I've become. You know, when I look at you, there's this memory that flashes back. A secret I said I'd keep when I was little. The main reason I kept dreaming about the outside world was 'cause of him. Riku reflected on that childhood memory, and the promise he had made. Strength for what? How did I answer back then? I've forgotten all this time. Why did I want to be strong? To protect what matters more than anything to me. That's just as true now as it was back then. My journey begins here and now. I'm going back to the real world and then to Sora's side.
That is your answer? Yes, that's my answer. I know the way. Consume the darkness, return it to light.
Riku summoned his Keyblade to his hand, then fixed Ansem with an angry look.
You can try.
Ansem hissed, and the darkness around them came away and swirled into a vortex. Their bodies drifted slowly downward until they reached a surface made of dry, heavy branches.
Komoribat and Meow-Wow aren't here. Guess I'm on my own this time. Ansem, you're part of my heart now, part of the light.
When Riku overcame Ansem, the darkness that lurked within him, he would open the path to light. No, maybe he already had. He would never fall to his inner darkness again.
Ever the fool, boy, and forever a pawn of the darkness.
Darkness flowed from Ansem's form and congealed into a gigantic black figure behind him that roared threateningly.
Bring it on!
Riku yelled as he lay in wait for his charging foe. They were locked together in intense, close-quarters combat. Riku would knock Ansem away, and his foe would come barreling forward just as before. Finally, Riku dodged and cast a spell, but Ansem came at him yet again as if it were nothing. The figure behind Ansem reached out and sent Riku flying with a punch. Ugh! Riku dropped to his knees as he tried to pull himself together. The shadow wasn't through yet, though, as it pounded the ground with its fist and sent a shockwave into Riku. It was a direct hit, and as soon as Riku hit the ground, Ansem was coming for him again. Riku scrambled to his feet and blocked the attack. They were separate again, and this time it was Riku who closed the distance, swinging with his Keyblade as soon as he was within reach.
Foolish boy. Speak for yourself, Ansem.
Stepping back for a moment, Riku got his Keyblade into position and caught his breath. An indomitable will was coursing through him.
Impossible! I will carry my darkness with me and reach the dawn.
Riku shouted as he charged. This was his final attack. He jumped into the air in front of Ansem, then brought his Keyblade down onto the shadow behind him from overhead. The powerful follow-through brought the Keyblade all the way down to Ansem himself. His opponent fell still and seemed to fade into the shadowy figure behind him. Riku could tell that Ansem was spent.
Is it over?
The black shade reached out for him, and Riku instinctively raised the hand holding his Keyblade. When he did, the creature froze for only a moment before toppling over backward and melting away into the gloom. Riku stared at his hand around his Keyblade.
Just now, that was... strength for what?
He recalled that question that had come back to him just before the battle.
I wanted to be strong so I could protect what I care about more than anything. So long as you have the makings. And you will find me, friend. No ocean will contain you then. Ansem was once the darkness in my heart, but I've defeated him now. I finally found it. Strength to protect what matters,
Riku said to himself. He lowered his Keyblade. The world wavered again. Riku stood with his eyes closed and found himself in the world that never was. He was in the place where he had fought Roxas as Ansem back then. He'd seen this place in Sora's dream, but it was possible that this was the real world. He had escaped from the dream realm. It was all part of Ansem's, of Xehanort's plan that he had been separated from Sora from the outset. They had been unknowingly led astray from the Mark of Mastery exam and fallen right into his clutches.
Sora's gotta be here somewhere.
Riku began to walk toward the castle, the real headquarters of the organization. But then he came to a halt.
Hey, wait.
There was no path, only a precipice with the organization's keep floating off in the distance. Suddenly, Komoribat circled above Riku's head, chattering furiously. He may be back in the real world, but he could still borrow the Dream Eater's strength, which meant Sora still wasn't awake. Meow! He heard another cry, this time from far away. Across the chasm, Meow-Wow was watching him from atop the organization's castle, apparently calling him over.
Is that where Sora is?
Komoribat landed on his shoulder. It said as it rubbed against his cheek.
I get it. You want to lend me a wing, huh?
Riku petted the Dream Eater. He had never been alone, so he could be confident they would be together from here on too. Komoribat took hold of Riku by the back and lifted him up, then flew toward Meow-Wow.
Thanks.
Once they had landed safely at the castle, Komoribat rubbed against Riku's cheek once more and flew into the air. Meow-Wow brushed up against his legs.
And thank you too.
Riku scratched the spirit's belly, prompting it to roll over happily. He gave the building a hard look, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. Within were 13 tall chairs arranged in a white circular room. They were all empty and all high overhead, except for one. Sitting in the chair closest to the ground was Sora! Riku started to run over to his sleeping friend, but before he could reach him, a dark portal formed right in front of him. The person within it knocked him away. Ugh! Riku crashed to the ground, and the silver-haired boy he had encountered more than once stood over him.
Hands off my new vessel.
Vessel? Riku asked as he raised his head.
Yes, we originally had our sights set on you, but you developed a certain resistance to the darkness, so we did what the Keyblade did and moved down the list. Roxas, now there was a worthy candidate, but unfortunately he became too aware of himself and returned to Sora.
Riku got to his feet, glaring angrily at the silver-haired youth.
Organization 13's true goal is to divide Xehanort's heart among 13 vessels. Thanks to you and Sora, we learned not all our candidates were fit for the task, but we managed to make up the difference. And now, Sora, the 13th vessel, is within our grasp.
13 Xehanorts? Riku whispered. What did that even mean? Columns of darkness began to appear over the empty chairs, each one leaving a seat occupied by someone in a black coat. However, the tallest one remained vacant.
The real Organization 13.
Meaning the Organization 13 from before was just a sham?
I am Xehanort from the most distant past. My future self gave me a task to visit the splintered versions of myself in many worlds and ensure they gathered here today,
said the young man. What does he mean, from the distant past? Riku recalled the names of all the ones he knew with some direct connection to Xehanort. There's the Xehanort who called himself Ansem, Xemnas, and the Xehanort here in front of me. And one more. Master Xehanort, the one he only knew by name from Yen Sid.
There are restrictions to movement through time. First, you must leave your body behind to do it. Then, there must be a version of you waiting at that destination. Upon arrival, you can only move forward as per the laws of time, and you cannot rewrite the events that are destined to happen.
So Xehanort was always around in one form or another, is that it?
No, not Xehanort. Master Xehanort.
A shock of anxiety ran down his spine, and Riku was shouting before he could stop himself. What have you done?
My most future self will arrive soon. Then time for all of us will return to normal, and I will go back to my era to live the life fate has in store. He can vouch for that.
Riku lifted his gaze to the highest chair, where a black haze was coalescing into human form. That was when a beam of light struck down into the center of the chamber with a blinding flash. The impact hurled the silver-haired boy away. Stop, sir! And as time froze around them, Riku recognized the voice. I'm glad I'm not too late! The light had brought someone with it, and the newcomer turned and grinned at Riku. Mickey! Riku called the name of his dear friend and ran over to him. Just grab Sora so we can go! I can't stop them for long! Okay. But the moment Riku answered, something knocked Mickey away. Whoa! Mickey! The young Xehanort stood shrouded in darkness.
I said hands off!
How can you be moving? A keyblade appeared in the young man's hand. Oh no! Mickey cried. Are you? The young man's eyes flashed gold.
Be gone!
In the next instant, darkness overtook Riku and Xehanort. Riku found himself on a platform patterned like a clock face, surrounded by hourglasses and floating gears that resembled the parts of a clock. The young Xehanort faced off with Riku, keyblade at the ready. This is the version of him from the most distant past. So he has the power to manipulate time? How can he use a keyblade? Because he's an incarnation of Master Xehanort? As Riku came out of his thoughts, he noticed the two spirits by his side. Let's do this! Riku immediately emerged with Meow Wow to launch an attack. Their keyblades met in a bright burst of incredible speed and force. They broke apart for a moment and fired off magic at each other, but they were evenly matched here as well. For a moment, Riku even thought the young Xehanort might actually be stronger.
Either way, I'm not going to lose. I have to win for Sora, for all my friends, for myself.
As they came together over and over, burning off stamina, Riku could feel the determination burning brighter and brighter in his heart. Meow separated from him, and Komoribat took its place. Time to take this to the air. Using his new set of wings, Riku retained magic down on his foe from above.
You won't defeat me, because I want to protect what matters to me. I want to protect my friends, but they aren't the ones I'm fighting for. I have to do this for me. This is the end!
Riku threw everything he had into a downward slash with his Keyblade, and time stopped. Somehow, young Xehanort's body had transformed into the face of a clock. No, he had merged with time itself. As time began to flow again, Riku leaped back into the air and unleashed a succession of Firaga Burst spells. The clock split into several copies, all of which fired X-shaped waves of light in his direction, but Riku knocked each one away with his Keyblade before making for the clock again. He could see the hands of the clock turning back a bit each time they were struck.
What is going on here? Either way, I can't let up now.
Then, with one last blow, the clock returned to its initial position with the hands pointing to the 12, and everything went quiet. As the gears faded away and the chairs appeared to replace them, the room returned to its original state.
Are you okay, Riku?
Mickey came running up to him.
Yeah, thanks, Mickey,
Riku replied, and Mickey looked up at the tallest chair.
Master Xehanort, he shouted. We were right about you.
Riku followed Mickey's gaze to the one sitting in the seat. The old man with golden eyes smirked down at them with utter confidence.
This guy must be Master Xehanort. All of this was decided. My 12 selves would welcome me here on this day, when I would return a complete person. It is the future which lies beyond my sight. So everyone here, they're all Xehanort.
Before he knew it, the unknown figures in black hoods had been joined by Master Xehanort, his younger self, Ansem, Xemnas, and Xigbar.
Why are you doing this?
Despite Mickey's agitation, Master Xehanort explained at a leisurely pace.
In ancient times, people believed that light was a gift from an unseen land by the name of Kingdom Hearts. But Kingdom Hearts was safeguarded by its counterpart, the Keyblade. Warriors vied for that precious light, thus beginning the Keyblade War. The violent clash scattered the Keyblade into 20 pieces, 7 of light and 13 of darkness. And the only real Kingdom Hearts was swallowed by the darkness, never to surface again.
He slowly closed his eyes, reflecting.
I once tried to create my own pure light and darkness to forge the Keyblade, but the attempt ended in failure. In my eagerness, I had lost sight of the correct way to achieve my goal. I acted rashly. I can admit that now.
Mickey jabbed a finger at Xehanort. What you did back then, your mistakes changed the destinies of 3 of my friends, he shouted. However, the old master's gold eyes were still seeing the past.
But destiny is never left to chance. I merely guided them to their proper places. The broken boy who failed to be the blade, the misguided master who sacrificed herself for a friend, and the feckless youth who became my new vessel.
Master Xehanort said confidently with his legs crossed. Mickey lowered his gaze. I couldn't find a way to save him, but I wanted to believe that their sacrifice stopped you for good. The king hung his head, but his fists were clenched as he continued. Why? How was I so blind? I should have seen it as soon as Maleficent started gathering the 7 princesses of heart. Master Xehanort smiled as he replied.
Yes, they were all my doing. I used the evil fairy to find 7 pure lights for me, just as I prepared 13 vessels to fill with pure darkness.
Finally, Riku stepped forward to stand alongside Mickey and speak to the master himself.
But you failed. Sora stopped you in your tracks on both counts,
he contended with a glance over at his sleeping friend.
Yes, he did. That dull, ordinary boy. A Keyblade wielder so unlike any I have ever seen. However, I have not abandoned my ambitions. The 7 Guardians of Light and the 13 Seekers of Darkness.
Xehanort stopped for a moment and sneered again. 7 Guardians of Light? Well, for Keyblade wielders, there's me and Riku and Sora, and my 3 missing friends. That's 6.
then the 7th would be. That means the 13 Seekers of Darkness. Yes, little king, perceptive, but Sora and another on your list belong to me now, and that puts you 3 guardians short. But worry not, all of the pieces are destined to appear. Your 7 lights, just like my 13 darknesses, whose final clash will beget the prize I seek. The Kai Blade!
Mickey and Master Xehanort shouted the final words together. The old master rose from his seat and summoned his Keyblade to his hand.
But first, the 13 darknesses shall be united. All the seats have been filled, and now the last vessel shall bear my heart like the rest,
he cried, and the chair holding Sora began to slowly rise.
No! Sora!
Mickey and Riku exclaimed almost simultaneously. The king hurried to reach Sora, jumping from chair to chair, but Xemnas leaped up and stopped him in his tracks. Riku had dashed ahead at the same time, but found himself held by Ansem. As Riku and Mickey struggled, Master Xehanort released a black mass from his Keyblade in Sora's direction.
No!
But at that very moment, a wall of flames rose to protect their friend, exploding out to burn everything around him. From the fire and sooty smoke, a man in a black coat stepped out with Sora under his arm.
He made it!
Mickey gasped in relief.
You!
Xemnas growled, still holding Mickey.
Axel!
Xigbar yelled as he rose from his chair.
Axel, please! The name's Lee. Got it memorized?
He announced to the members of the organization with a grin.
You're not supposed to be here!
Xigbar snarled.
Promises to keep. I'll always be there to get my friends back. What, bad timing? You had your perfect little script, but you kind of forgot to write the sequel. Now, let's find out what happens.
Lee laughed defiantly, holding out his chakram.
What now, you old coot?
Xigbar demanded, looking up toward Master Xehanort.
Our time is up!
Just then, one of the figures in the black coat stood up and lunged at Lee with a massive sword, a claymore in his hand. Lee parried the attack, but the impact knocked off his attacker's hood to reveal a man with long blue hair and a neck-shaped scar on his forehead. Cyax, or rather,
Isa.
Lee said the name of his former best friend, glaring at him nearly nose to nose as chakram struggled against Claymore. Realizing he didn't stand a chance while he was holding Sora, Lee spun around and jumped down from the chair. As he did, Mickey knocked Xemnas aside while Riku shook off Ansem. The two of them drew their keyblades to shield Lee and Sora in his arms.
Why are you here, Axel?
Riku shouted over his shoulder to Lee.
No, I told you my name's... Ugh, whatever, Axel, fine. Now, let's get out of here.
Right! As Mickey nodded his agreement, a black shadow emerged from behind Ansem and flew at Mickey and Riku, snatching the two of them up in its grasp.
Whoa! Ah!
With the two of them caught and Lee unable to act, they were all but doomed. Suddenly, however, they heard a pair of familiar and very distinctive voices.
Whack! Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-wee!
A light came zigzagging down from above and crashed into the dark creature holding Riku and Mickey. The shock set the two of them loose, and the unexpected blow sent the black shadow back into the darkness. Now free, Riku and Mickey, as well as Lee, peered into the light to see who had just saved them, and saw a very dizzy-looking Donald and Goofy. Were we supposed to do that?
Well, I think so.
Riku and Mickey couldn't keep the smiles off their faces as they watched their friends look around, eyes spinning.
Goofy, Donald, you saved us!
The air began to tremble, and the members of the True Organization 13 slowly dissolved into darkness.
We are out of time. Neither the union of light nor darkness has been achieved, and we must all return whence we came. But the gathering of the 7 and 13 is nigh. Let us finish this at the fated place, once your lights and my darknesses have joined together.
Master Xehanort declared, though it wasn't clear if it was meant for the members of the organization or for Riku and his friends. The fated place, maybe Mickey knew where that was. On that land, a battle had once been fought to determine the destiny of the world, and the 7 lights and 13 darknesses were beginning to come together for the final conflict once again. But Sora was still asleep.